So I was doing some research recently in trying to find a single area that houses all of the relevant information for Counter-Strike in our region. You've got your ESEA standings, your HLTV results, but apart from that, you'd need to go to Twitter to try and, gather all that information that happened in regards to Counter-Strike this week in Australia. And it kind of got me thinking, well, what if I made a video on this? It would bring together the matches that were played, their results, and any other relevant news in regards to Counter-Strike. So, on the back of that, welcome to This Week in AUCS, where we touch upon just that, the results of the Counter-Strike matches, and any other kind of relevant news regarding Counter-Strike in our scene. So to start things off, MDL started back up this week on Monday. We didn't see any games played on Monday, but we did Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So to start things off, Rooster took on Really Weird, one of the new teams that were brought into MDL after the relegations. We saw them play on Dust 2. The scoreline, however, you might have think, okay, it's Rooster. We've seen how they played last season. It might go into their way. Well, it didn't. It went 11-16 in favor of Really Weird. So me personally, I'll have my eyes out for them moving forward, and there was also some other information on the back of these guys, which we'll touch back on later on in the video. Also on Tuesday, we saw Chiefs take on Mako. The map played was Vertigo, and if you are familiar with, the changes to Vertigo, B site having some changes, mid, and a little bit of change over at A as well, I thought it was an interesting pick to come out from the Mako and Chiefs match, but in the end, it does go over to the Chiefs 16-5. Moving on to Wednesday, we did see a massive opener for the night. It was Chiefs versus Order. It went over to Vertigo as well, so you might be thinking, all right, Chiefs played Vertigo the previous day. Maybe they might look to shake Order up a little bit, but no, it went 16-7 in favor of Order. Afterwards, we did see Order take on Bance. It moved over to a Dust 2. The scoreline a little bit better than the previous one in favor of Order's opposition, but Order still winning it out. It was 16-8. Some new entrants into MDL as well saw Overt take on Forbidden. It was also on Dust 2. Final scoreline went 16-10 in favor of Overt. Two more matches for the night on Wednesday, but one of them did see a bit of a forfeit, unfortunately. It was Downfall, now known as AUCS, taking on Incept, and unfortunately, Downfall did have to take a forfeit loss in that one, so Incept win by default. And lastly, we see another return for Bance to conclude the night. They took on PC419 on Dust 2 as well. Lots of Dust 2 for Wednesday night. Final scoreline, though, was a bit of a big scoreline difference. It was 16-6 in favor of Bance. So lastly, we move on to Thursday, and you'll have to bear with me on this one. There were many matches played this night. So to kick things off, we saw another banger. We saw Avant versus Ground Zero start things off. It was over on Nuke. The final scoreline, 16-9 in favor of Avant. After that, we saw the Truckers with Attitude take on ESEA Open. Yes, their name is ESEA Open. The map, it went over to Mirage. So my first thoughts were, please don't give us any overtime, and they didn't disappoint. It was 8-16 in favor of ESEA Open. Fury make their entry point into this season as well, taking on Incept previously, who got that forfeit win on the previous night. Inferno was the map that was played. It went 13-16 in favor of Incept. Another big match that was aligned for the night saw Ground Zero take on Rooster on Inferno. Bit of a close scoreline in this one as well, 13-16, though in favor of Rooster. This time we see AUCS have to take a forfeit loss against Forbidden, so Forbidden getting an instant win as well. Hopefully, we may see AUCS pick up a full roster, get more players into it so they don't have to take these forfeits later on in the season as well. You hate seeing forfeit losses. Fury move into their second match for the night as well, this time taking on a Paradox. It went over to Dust 2 again. We've had a lot of Dust 2 played this season so far. Final scoreline, 16-12 in favor of Paradox. PC419 versus Truckers with Attitude saw a bit of a wide scoreline difference. You'd think, all right, PC419, we know who they are in the region, but yeah, Truckers with Attitude, they got their attitude on, and they certainly took it to PC419 in this match. 16-4 on Nuke. That's just really rough for PC419. And lastly, to conclude out the MDL week for this first week in MDL, we saw Overt take on Avant on Train, and if you're familiar with Avant's Train, you don't really want to mess with them on it, and they kind of just steamrolled Overt as well. It was 16-5. So So moving forward into the leaderboards, we do see Insert Divine and Order tying in at that first spot. They're all currently going 2-0. After that, we have ESEA Open, Really Weird, Paradox, Rooster, and Forbidden that make up that top 8 as well. Not to be confused, there are a lot of teams that are currently going 1-1 in the season. You look at Chiefs as well, and a couple of the others, so they'll eventually move on up depending if they win, depending if they lose, they'll move on down. But what is interesting as well, Ground 0, 0-2, not really where we want to be seeing them currently. We usually want them up toward the top, or we usually see them up toward the top. So a bit of a rocky start into this season. A little bit of extra news for this week. We did see Really Weird get picked up by Justice Esports, so they're going to be repping the star from now on. We also see Kingfisher depart from Ground 0, so hopefully he does find a new team quite soon, because I always miss hearing the nice David yelled over in the server. For the last part in the news segment, it is going to touch back on the alleged match fixing scandal that we saw last year. Now, an article's come out from ABC detailing a lot more of what happened. It also mentions the court date. It'll be in September coming this year, where we will probably get a lot more information leading up to it as well. So the 5 members involved have had charges laid against them for the match fixing. That's going to wrap up this first episode of This Week in AUCS. I would love your guys' feedback. Make sure you drop a comment. Also, moving forward, I would love to add some clips, some highlights of the games that were played in this week. So if you find any clips that happen, any cool things from either yourself commentating for the commentators in our region, or just as a spectator, make sure you go ahead and either message me on Twitter, in my Discord, the clip, and I'll be sure to add it into the video just to give a little bit more warmth to this video. And also, any feedback that you guys have would be greatly appreciated. This is my first kind of video cutting it together as well, so it's going to look, a little bit rusty. Hopefully I get a little bit better moving on as well. But that's going to be it for me, guys. Make sure you drop a follow on my Twitter if you want to stay updated with me personally. That's going to be at Komodo AU, and over on my Twitch where I do all my live streaming, you're going to see me commentating a lot of these games as well. So that's going to be twitch.tv/Komodo. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you next week.